Look at them, hand in hand, standing together in a quiet room, the picture of a happy marriage. That is what almost everyone sees first. And it is wrong. Because one of these two people may have already been dead before Jan van Eyck ever picked up his brush. This is the Arnolfini Portrait, painted in 1434, and for centuries it has been called a wedding. But look closer, and the piece starts to feel staged, almost too deliberate, like a scene arranged to hide something rather than celebrate it. There is a candle that has gone out, a dog that guards more than loyalty, a saint carved into a chair for a reason no one questions until it is too late. Van Eyck buried a woman's death inside what looks like a portrait of new love, and it took nearly 600 years for anyone to notice. Let's look at it properly. Two figures stand in an upstairs reception room in the city of Bruges, and every object around them is a statement. The woman wears a green gown lined with fur, so heavy with fabric that she gathers it forward in her arms just to stand comfortably. The man beside her wears dark robes, trimmed in fur as well, his hand raised beside hers in a gesture that looks almost like a jowl. Behind them, oranges rest on the windowsill and the chest below it. Fruit that had no business existing in 15th century Northern Europe unless you were wealthy enough to import it. A brass chandelier hangs above them. A small dog sits at their feet. A convex mirror glows on the back wall. This couple were Italian cloth merchants living in Bruges, and every fold of fabric in this room was designed to be seen. It looks like nothing more than a portrait of success, but nothing here was left to chance. Jan van Eyck was one of the first painters to master oil as a medium, layering thin, translucent glazes to create a depth and glow that had never been seen before. You can see it in the way light moves differently across fur and velvet, in the way the mirror seems to hold real light inside it. But Van Eyck did something else here, something artists rarely did in 1434. Above the mirror, in elegant script, placed at the very center of the composition instead of hidden in a corner, he wrote Johannes de Eyck fuit hic, 1434. Jan van Eyck was here, not painted by, not made by, was here. And inside that mirror, reflected faintly near the doorway, stand two small figures watching the room. One of them may be Van Eyck himself, written permanently into the scene he was recording. For decades, this signature was read as proof of exactly one thing: a wedding. In 1934, art historian Erwin Panofsky proposed something that shaped how the entire world would see this painting for the next 60 years. He argued this was not just a portrait, but a legal record of a marriage, with Van Eyck's signature acting as a notary's seal, and the two figures in the mirror standing as official witnesses. The joined hands, he said, were a wedding vow. The single lit candle represented the eye of God watching over the union. Even the little dog was fidelity itself, loyal and present at the ceremony. For decades, this reading was treated as fact. It is the reason the painting is still called the Arnolfini wedding today. But Panofsky had identified the couple as Giovanni di Arrigo Arnolfini and his wife, Jeanne Senami. And in the 1990s, researchers found something that broke his entire theory apart. Records showed the two did not marry until 1447, 13 years after this painting was finished, 6 years after Van Eyck had already died. So who are these people? The most convincing answer points to a cousin, Giovanni di Niccolao Arnolfini, another cloth merchant from Lucca living in Bruges, and his wife, Costanza Trenta. Van Eyck is known to have painted this same man again the following year, proof the two knew each other well. But here is the detail that changes everything. Costanza Trenta died before February 1433, likely around the age of 20, possibly in childbirth. That is 1 full year before this painting is dated. Giovanni never remarried. In 2003, art historian Margaret Costa proposed the theory that would flip this entire painting on its head. This was not a record of a marriage at all. It was a memorial. A husband, still alive, standing beside a wife who was already gone. Painted not to celebrate a wedding, but to preserve her. And once you accept that, the clues start appearing everywhere. Look up at the chandelier. It holds 2 candle holders, one above the man on the left, one above the woman on the right. Only 1 candle is lit. The candle above Giovanni burns steadily, full and bright. On Costanza's side, there is no flame at all, only a small stub of melted wax, as if a candle had already burned down and gone out. In the tradition of memento mori, an extinguished candle was one of the clearest symbols an artist could use for a life that had ended. He lives, she does not. Split directly down the middle of the painting, right above their heads, in a detail so small most people never think to look up. Now look at the dog at their feet. Panofsky saw loyalty, a symbol of marital fidelity standing guard over the union. But dogs appear in another context in this period too, carved at the feet of women on medieval tomb effigies, placed there as guardians meant to guide the deceased into whatever comes next. And the dog stands closest to her. Behind Costanza, carved into the post of her chair, is a small figure almost no one notices. Saint Margaret, patron saint of women in childbirth. And above them, the mirror itself is framed by 10 tiny scenes from the Passion of Christ. They are not scattered at random. On the man's side, Christ alive. On the woman's side, his death and resurrection. Even the light in the painting seems to obey this divide. Warmth and colour pool around her. Shadow and darker tones surround him. Life on one side, death on the other. Nothing in this room is undecided. And here is the detail that convinces even the skeptics. Using infrared reflectography, conservators looked beneath the surface of the paint into Van Eyck's original underdrawing. And the dog was not there. The chandelier was not there. The carved figure of Saint Margaret was not there. These were added later, painted directly onto a composition that had already been planned without them. Which means, at some point, mid-painting, something changed. The most likely explanation is the darkest one. Costanza died while this portrait was still being made, and Van Eyck kept working, quietly building her death into a painting that had begun as something else entirely. The clues were not part of the plan, they were the response to one. Which brings us back to the question everyone asks first. Is she pregnant? Almost certainly not. Gathering a heavy gown forward like this was simply the fashion of wealthy women at the time. Van Eyck painted the Virgin Mary in the exact same pose in another work, and no one reads that as pregnancy. As a cloth merchant, displaying that much expensive fabric was the ultimate advertisement. But if this is Costanza, and she did die in childbirth, then the pose carries a quieter weight. Not proof, just a shadow, painted without meaning to, of the very thing that may have taken her life. Nearly 600 years have passed, and we still cannot fully agree on what this painting is. A wedding? A memorial? Something that began as one and quietly became the other while Van Eyck was still painting it. What is certain is this. He stood in that room in Bruges, saw something worth recording with extraordinary care, and buried meaning into every corner of it. Above the mirror, beneath the paint, in a candle that never got relit. He signed it not as a painter, but as a witness. Jan van Eyck was here, 1434. And somehow, 6 centuries later, so is she. Thank you for looking this closely. There are more paintings out there hiding stories like this one. Like and subscribe, and we'll find them together.